Welcome back to my channel. I'm just going to dive right in today. I started listening to an audiobook 2 days ago and I am already 84% of the way through. It's close to a 12-hour audiobook, I believe, and all of this to say is I think that this might be one of my favorite books of the year. I can't imagine it being anything lower than a 5-star read. I am 84% through, so I can say almost confidently that it's going to be a 5-star read. I'm just very excited about this book, and it caught me by surprise. I've been seeing it popping up all over social media. So I thought that I would just give it a listen, being that I needed another audiobook, and wow, I am beyond thrilled that I started listening to it. The book is Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. This is my first Ann Patchett novel, and I don't think it's going to be my last. I don't know why this book is hitting me the way it is. I don't know if it's Ann Patchett's writing. I don't know if it's Meryl Streep and the way she is narrating it in the audiobook. I don't know, but it's incredible, and all I can think about is this story, and all I want to do is listen to this audiobook. I have found every possible reason to listen to this audiobook. I have cleaned, I have cooked, and yes, these are things I'm always doing anyway, but I've taken a little more time in the cleaning and the cooking just so I can extend the amount of time I am listening to this audiobook. So I think I was around 54% of the way through yesterday when I started cooking my dinner, and it hit me then that I am going to re-listen to this audiobook as soon as I'm done with it. It's going to be finished and then right back to the beginning. And then it hit me again, probably some point last night, that I saw a copy of this book at the bookstore when I visited last week. So all plans out the window today. My main goal and my hope, beyond hope, is that I walk into that bookstore today and I see that copy still on display. Now, it's a hope because it's a used bookstore. If you watched my last video, you would have gone to the bookstore with me and I would have told you about it always being a treasure, finding what I can find there because it's a used bookstore. So I'm going to walk to this bookstore, and I'm hoping and praying that that book, Tom Lake, is still there so that I can snag it and I can bring it home, and I don't even know what. I just need it in my possession. I think it's possibly one of my favorite books of all time. We could probably talk about that a little later, but right now I need to get to the bookstore and hopefully get myself that copy. So I'll bring you along with me. So let's go do that. My brisk walk and a little frazzled from my experience at the bookstore, but Tom Lake has been secured. I have a physical copy of this book that is just doing something to me. I am going through all of the scenes and the story all in all here, and I'm trying to figure out what is happening in this book that's having such an effect on me. And I wish that I could put it into words, into a complete thought. But it's a similar effect. This book is having the same effect that the play Our Town had on me. And what is so fascinating, I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, but so much of this book is about the play Our Town. I don't know if there's just a chord that has been struck and it's resonating with me, because Our Town is so impactful and influential, and one of my favorite works of literature, I'm going to call it literature, of all times. It's in my top 3, The Giver, Our Town, and I kind of always leave that other space for a book, because I've read incredible, amazing books in my life, some that I would consider favorites, but for some reason I can never put one in, I can never fill that 3rd slot. So The Giver, which is a children's middle grade dystopian novel, Our Town, which is a play by Thornton Wilder, my favorites. This book, it's not going to fill the 3rd slot, because like I said, I don't know if a book ever will, because I like to keep it open. But this book is definitely going to be up there, top 5, top 10, maybe, I don't know. But I'm struggling to put it into words, but it's the same effect Our Town has. It's a story just about everyday life, and nothing remarkable happens. And that's not to take away or discredit the author of Our Town, who's Thornton Wilder, or Ann Patchett here. It's not to take away from them at all, because she does a brilliant job in this book, and I feel like I've never read a more realistic set of characters. These people feel so real. It's such a great experience. So it's not to take away from her writing her story. It's just the beauty in the ordinary. And that's what Our Town is. It's such an incredible play. If you've never read it, please read it. I think it could change your life. It's changed my life. It's a play that I would read every spring for several years in a row. It was this play that I would read because I needed something to wake me out of that winter stupor, you know, like those bleak months of January, February, March that kind of just shut you down a little bit. I needed something to shake me awake, and Our Town always did that for me. And when I go too long without reading it or without thinking about it, I feel like something is a little off. And I know that sounds wild, right? I can totally admit that sounds wild, but it's just the power of the story in Our Town that really makes you put things in perspective and wakes you up to reality, just plain old, everyday, ordinary reality. And that's what Tom Lake is doing. It's reminding me of the power of Our Town, but it's also just reminding me of the beauty in the ordinary. And I have not finished this book. I need to. But that's what it's doing here. It's taking a family farm in Michigan, and of course there is beauty in just that. I want to go to Michigan now after reading what I've read so far. It seems stunning, especially in the summer. But it's taking just the life of this family of 5 on a cherry farm in Michigan, and it's showing you how important their lives are, not because they're famous or they're widely influential in any way, but it's because they do their work and they do it well. And when someone does their work and shows up every day and performs just the basic everyday tasks, there's a ripple effect to that. And it can impact not just the people in your little orbit, but it can impact people that you'll never meet ever. And that's something I think that this story is doing. Again, I can't put it all into words right now because it's just a mix in me of beauty and emotion, and I need to finish the book to be able to form a complete thought, but I just needed to say that so far. I got myself a beautiful copy of Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. I'm so happy. I walked into the bookstore and I looked right at the display and I said, I need that copy of Tom Lake. And I think I threw the bookstore owner a little off there. He was a little taken aback because I don't even think I said hi. I said hi after that, but I got myself a copy of Tom Lake. That's really what matters here. And I had to browse. If you watched the clips, if you saw the clips, I pulled out a copy of Our Town because it's one of those books I always have to visit when I'm in a bookstore because it's like saying hi to a friend, honestly. So I saw a couple copies of Our Town, and then I saw this nice thick copy, 3 plays by Thornton Wilder, and one of them in here is Our Town, and I have, of course, a copy of Our Town. So I was kind of like, do I need this? I already have a copy. I decided, yes, obviously, to get it because I have not read The Skin of Our Teeth or The Matchmaker. I know nothing about either of these plays. What I do know is that Thornton Wilder changed my life through Our Town, so I have hope that something else will happen in The Skin of Our Teeth and The Matchmaker, something that will, again, impact me and touch me viscerally and hopefully, again, change my life in some extraordinary way. Just words. That's what is so incredible about reading. It's all just words on a page, and it really does have the power to change things for a person. So I have an issue because I'm buying too many books and I need to finish books. So it's getting a little crazy. Correction, we've already reached the point of crazy. I have a lot of books here that I need to complete. But you know what? Sometimes it just has to happen. Sometimes it just has to happen. And here we are with the 2 newest editions, and I am absolutely thrilled. Okay, so I just finished listening to and following along with Meryl Streep's narration of Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, and I was not expecting that ending at all. It kind of took a turn for me. I don't know. Yeah, I want to say, I think I need to sit with it longer. I want to say it's 5 stars because although that ending was little, I don't know, unexpected, I guess it's a good thing. I was expecting, obviously I'm being vague because I don't want to give anything away. Absolutely no spoilers because you should read this book. It's enjoyable. It's fully entertaining. If you can listen to the audiobook, listen to the audiobook. Meryl Streep is absolutely incredible. She makes the story come to life. You can fully visualize it. You are totally engrossed and captivated. She did an absolutely fantastic job at narrating this story, 100% would recommend listening to the audiobook of Tom Lake. I'm sure reading the physical copy is great also, but Meryl Streep just blows it out of the park, which is a given, of course she does. So the ending did catch me a little off guard, but I guess that's good. I guess it's good that it wasn't all that predictable. In my clip earlier, I watched it back. I don't want to mislead anyone in any way because this story is more than just the ordinary. I think I was drawing those parallels between Tom Lake and Our Town, but this story does do an absolutely stellar job at painting the picture of everyday life and showing you how what people do for their day to day is what makes up the whole of a life, and how all of that, though mundane and repetitive, is also extraordinary in many ways. So I do love how there are parallels between Tom Lake and Our Town, especially being that Our Town is such a huge part of this book. But there's so much more to this story as well. Overall, it's a story about family, this dynamic. We have Laura. She is telling her 3 daughters the story of this brief moment in her life when she was a celebrity or an actress. She never technically reached that level of celebrity, but she was an incredible actress. She started off in high school playing Emily in Our Town, and from there she was discovered, mostly on luck and good timing, and she was discovered and she continued playing this role of Emily in different times of her life, and eventually ends up in Michigan, where I guess there's a really well-known playhouse there. So in the summer at this playhouse in Michigan, they put on a number of shows, and it's a pretty well-known theater from what I gather, and Laura ends up playing Emily in Our Town in Michigan, and there she comes across this character named Peter Duke, and we later learn that Peter Duke becomes an incredibly successful, well-known, and accomplished actor. So we hear the story about Laura and Peter Duke and their small, brief relationship that they had in the summer of 1988, I think. And Laura is telling her 3 daughters this story over the course of the pandemic. So her 3 daughters, all in their 20s, are back on the farm due to the lockdown. And there they ask their mother about the time that she dated Peter Duke, the actor, the famous actor. So because they're in lockdown and they have to pass time and they're kind of over listening to the news and podcasts, Laura tells her 3 daughters the story of the time she dated an actor. And it's beautiful the way the narrative just kind of ebbs and flows in between this direct dialogue and what seems to be indirect dialogue at times. It reads as a memoir, but then you are snapped back into the scene when a daughter puts her 2 cents in or asks a question. And you have Laura, this very open narrator, very willing to tell her story to her daughters, but you also kind of feel something lurking, maybe not necessarily lurking. You kind of wonder what she's leaving out. And she tells you in the story that, of course, she's going to leave some details out of the story because she's telling the story to her daughters, and she finds it unnecessary to include certain details, for the sake of her pride, her dignity, and her daughters, to save them from embarrassment. And with that, you kind of wonder what else she's leaving out of the story. So it's not that she seems unreliable, but you know that she is, because she admits to leaving out aspects of the story. So it's interesting in that regard as well. I loved it. There are so many things to say about this book. The description, Ann Patchett does a beautiful job describing Michigan in all its glory in the summer, painting the picture of fields upon fields of cherry trees ripe with red fruit in the summer, and you can imagine how crystal clear the lake is that they're diving into in between rehearsals, and it all just seems like a movie. The book reads like a movie, and I recommend it. Again, there's so much more to say about this, so those are my initial thoughts right upon finishing it. I think I need to sit with it a little longer to let it sink in fully, and then maybe I'll come back and say more. I'm not sure if I will. All I know right now is that this book was awesome. I'm so glad that I decided to listen to it, and I'm so glad I got myself a copy today. And I also know that I'm due for a reread of Our Town. Hello again. It is several days later, and I have had time to think about Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. I've also had time to restart the audiobook, and I am well over 30% into my second listen of Tom Lake. And it's just as awesome as it was the first time around. But now that I know the outcome of the story, I'm familiar with the overall plot, the characters, and so on, I am able to pick out more details and see truly how the story weaves together, because I know how the story ends. And it is truly a work of brilliance and a work of art. I admire Ann Patchett. She is a craftsman or a craftswoman, and I have always had such an appreciation for art of all forms, but something about books and the way that somebody can imagine a story and put it into words. It is, to me, one of the most profound and miraculous things the brain can do. And I am just in awe. And reading Tom Lake by Ann Patchett has reminded me of the brilliance of writing and how incredible it is that some people are gifted with this talent to think up a story and write it in a way that the reader can be totally immersed in a world and feel like they're there, feel like they know the characters, get totally invested 100%. Reading Tom Lake has just reminded me of the beauty and power of storytelling, and for that I am very, very grateful. I recommend listening to it. That's how I first received the story and am receiving it again. Of course, I picked up the book as well, and now when I hear a part of the story that I love particularly, I run back to the book and I get to underline it. So I do imagine that I will read the physical book at one point or another, but right now I'm really just enjoying listening to it and going back to the physical copy and marking up the parts that really stand out to me. I think that I pretty much summed up the story in previous clips, but as I'm listening to it again, one of the things that's standing out to me is, again, this family dynamic, but more specifically, the dynamic between daughters and their mom. And I love how you have 3 daughters in this book, because you see how different every daughter is. Of course, I'm sure that's the same with just every child, but daughters in particular and how they interact with their mother. The firstborn, Emily, is so classic, in my opinion, from what I've experienced in literature and movies or whatever, has that classic relationship with her mother where The mother just adores her firstborn child, as she adores all of her children, of course. But if there's something about that firstborn, I would imagine, I'm not a mom. Again, this is just what I've gathered. How she adores her firstborn child, and how her firstborn kind of keeps her mother at a distance. And how the mom is always trying to mend whatever fracture is in that relationship, whether it was something that happened in childhood or adolescence, the teenage years, whatever point of time there may have been an argument or a battle of some sort. You can see how the mom is always trying to mend that relationship. And we see it in this story so much with Emily. But what I'll say is, without giving anything away, I don't want to give anything away. I don't know what I should say without there being any spoilers. Maybe, never mind. Okay? Never mind. All I can say is never mind because I don't want to give anything away. So the dynamic between daughters and mom, wonderful. And truly how the story just unfolds. It unfolds seamlessly, beautifully, so organically, and it's overall a fantastic story. I apologize if I'm rambling. I have sat with the book now for a few days after finishing it, but I guess still I haven't been able to completely formulate all of my thoughts, opinions, and feelings because it's just that good of a book. I've listened to a couple interviews with Ann Patchett since finishing the book, and there was one done by Barnes & Noble where they interviewed Ann Patchett. That was awesome to listen to. I found that on YouTube. And I also listened to the Library of Congress. They posted an interview done a few years ago, or a discussion, and it was, oh my gosh, I was just thrilled when I found this on YouTube. It popped up on my feed. It was a conversation between Kate DiCamillo and Ann Patchett. And if you don't know, Kate DiCamillo is one of my favorite authors. I admire her so much. And to get to listen to them talk about the writing process and books and them gushing over each other's books, highly recommend listening to that too. Like I said, the Library of Congress, that should be on like the Library of Congress YouTube channel. So the Barnes & Noble one and the Library of Congress one, those interviews, conversations were really fun to listen to after experiencing Tom Lake. So we get a little more of what was going on in Ann Patchett's life, what created this story, and so on. I'm just going to have to wrap it up, or I'll just keep on rambling and blabbering on. I will leave you with a quote because I feel like it sums up the experience of reading this story. It says, "It was like being a leaf in a river. I fell in and was carried along." So that's that. Read Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate you taking the time. I hope that you enjoyed it and loved coming along with me as I found this copy at the bookstore and finished the book and so on. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.